Welcome back to the Cordell Cordell and Men's Divorce Podcast. I'm Scott Trout, CEO and Managing Partner of Cordell Cordell. As we do every week, twice each week, we're bringing you information for guys before, during, and after divorce and all things related to family law, trying to give you tips, education, talking points, most importantly. And as I always warn, don't take this as legal advice. Obviously, we want to meet with you. We want to get more details because the facts and circumstances of your case actually matter when it relates to the law. And it's easier and actually much better for you to have a meeting with an attorney, whether it's us or someone who practices exclusively in family law. Obviously, if you want to meet with us, you can find us on the web at cordellcordell.com. You can call us at 866-DADS-LAW, or you can find us across social on Facebook or Instagram. Watch out for the virtual town hall coming up in a week or so. You want to join, but you have to register at cordellcordell.com. You can log in for an hour, ask questions, and get answers live of our panel of Cordell Cordell attorneys on any topic regarding family law. So enough, let's get started with today, as we always are joined by attorneys from Cordell Cordell, and today is no different. We have a senior litigation partner, Kelly Burris, joining. Thanks.
Thank you for having me.
Well, let's talk something. We have briefly, believe it or not, in almost 52 weeks, talked about experts, very, very briefly. So it's a good topic today. And we want to talk to guys about accounting experts. That's really, I'm a big believer of them. Maybe just talk about some of the uses of accounting experts. Guys are thinking, how in the world why would I need one and why would I want one?
Yeah, I mean, it's, I deal with a lot of clients with property issues, and I love property cases, and it's something I enjoy working on. And, even if you don't have an absolute ton of assets, there's multiple things that can happen in a property case that can really put what you've worked hard for and your marital estate at risk without having the right information and the right experts involved. So that can include, and probably the most common thing that you would need in a divorce case is a real estate appraisal. Yeah. In so many of my property cases, I have clients that are very resistant to hiring experts. They seem like, well, I don't want to spend the money on that. And even if you don't have a case where, hey, I need an expert that's going to cost thousands of dollars to do X, Y, Z, real estate appraisals are pretty inexpensive, especially for homes and residences. And you're going to have that expert available to then testify to the court that's a lot more reliable than, say, your real estate agent buddy or doing a comp analysis or something like that. And a lot of times the other side won't even do one. So if you do a real estate appraisal, the other side doesn't, then the court is pretty much almost solely going to rely on your appraisal, and they're just not that expensive. So given that most parties will be anywhere from $20,000 to $100,000 apart on a piece of property, it's a good idea to just do that. Yeah. Other things that you might want to use an accounting expert for are other types of high asset appraisals. So if you have art or if you have expensive furniture, I had a client once that had a hobby. He did classic cars, and so we had those classic cars appraised. And getting a specialist to do those types of appraisals is going to be very important because those assets are difficult for a court to value. And a lot of the time, some courts probably won't even take a party's value that they come up with as evidence. Other issues, business valuations are huge. Parties a lot of times will even have smaller businesses that one side will say, hey, I know, he's going to keep this business, and so I'm going to say it's worth $500,000. And my client's telling me, well, you know what? This is a small business. It's really just me, and I'm in debt, so it's probably worth nothing. And so if you go into court and one of you has zero and the other one has 500,000, and the judge doesn't know and splits the difference, you're really stuck with this ridiculously out of bounds value, and you're stuck with having to buy potentially your spouse out of that. The resistance to that is always the cost. But if you're talking about a $50,000 difference in a business value, and you're spending $5,000 on a business valuation expert to do that, then obviously the cost benefit is there for you to go ahead and allow your attorney to hire an expert.
Yeah,
the other one is,
let me interrupt quickly.
Sure.
It's huge because cost benefit is big. I remember, especially, let's just talk about the house. You pointed out, I get clients that say, well, why can't my friend, she's a real estate agent, can't she just come in and just tell us what it's worth? And you covered that, and that's a common thing. But we had, for example, a house, we were so far apart in our valuations, I recommended the client, and we were like $100,000. I said, if you're confident it's not worth it, sell it to them. give them, make
Right.
them pay that high value. Then if it's $100,000, we're talking a $50,000 swing in the property. And so it's really about having that conversation with your attorney. Just don't say, oh, we need an expert. Let's have that conversation. What is, as you suggest, I think that's a great point, is a cost benefit analysis. Talking about what is it worth? What can we do?
For some dads out there, the coronavirus pandemic has become a pretext to limit access to their children. Other dads have been pushed out of key decisions affecting their children's lives. If you're one of those dads, Cordell Cordell is here for you, as always, but with expanded services. We can meet you in person or by video conference on weekdays, evenings, or weekends. Our goal is to step up our service to meet your needs now.
I've got a client right now in the restaurant industry, and our plan was at some point to get a business valuator. Well, that restaurant has been pretty much shut down for 12 months. I mean, it's a negative value at this point. And so that's something for us to talk about. Do we want to go spend $5,000, $8,000, $10,000 to go and do something that we know? I mean, I've even said, give them the restaurant. I mean, it's just not going to survive. And so I think that's really critical. And so, I hate to interrupt you, but we were talking really about the cost benefit. And I do think that's so critical when you get to that point.
It really is, especially if you are planning, you really want to hold on to that asset. You've got to get a valuation, but it is cost benefit. And that kind of leads me into the third sort of thing that, and it depends on state. But, in Texas, we're community property. So tracing, we have to trace and characterize out separate property. And that is very work intensive. That's very difficult to do, especially during long marriages. Sometimes, I shouldn't say always, but sometimes that's difficult to do, especially if you have a long marriage. And that's another thing that you have to really do a cost benefit approach, because hiring an accountant to do a tracing can be very expensive. So if you're going in and going, you know what, I came into this marriage with $10,000 that I really want out of the marriage at the end. And, it's been a 5-10 year marriage. The amount to trace that 10,000 is probably going to well exceed whether, just splitting it. Or just considering it as a community estate. So you've got to do those analyses as to whether or not the value is worth it. But you have to listen to your attorney to make those determinations, and you got to get on it early because a lot of times it'll take experts months and months and months to do some of this work. It's a cost issue. And also with discovery, the way that our discovery works, a lot of times we have to name an expert early. And if we do it too late, you could end up spending thousands of dollars on an expert that you can't use in trial because the stuff didn't get completed in time.
Yeah. I mean, I think the experts, and you get so much pushback, and I get it. We're talking about a lot of money, but I always liken it to, look, we want to avoid a he said, she said, where the judge doesn't know where to go. The judge doesn't really have anybody who's really, founded and schooled in evaluating assets. And typically they take the easiest road, split it down the middle, or we'll take the middle cost unless someone is so whacked. But that's the point, is if that variance is so large, going back to the cost benefit, it may make sense to get someone. And I'm a big believer in some of these. The real estate appraisal, it's going to be a very insignificant cost if the money is there, if the disparity is there and you want to keep the house and it's a low value. I think that's important. We haven't talked about accountants with maintenance or alimony or spousal support analysis or things like that I can use here in Missouri, because we don't have a formula for spousal support. So it's important to bring in an accountant in that regard. But businesses, typically, most clients don't have a business to worry about it, but when they do, it's pretty important. So documents, what kind of documents do you think that the guys would need to gather and present to an expert?
Well, your formation documents are key. All, of course, to income tax returns, K-1s, all of those kinds of things. Any business document, profit and P&L statements, profit and loss statements are huge. Quicken, your QuickBooks, all of that information. And that's something that you need to start working on as soon as you know you're getting a divorce. Gathering that information, gathering those documents. A lot of states, I know Texas, we just changed all of our rules now. So we have a very limited time to provide a lot of information early on in the case. And what I hear from other states is they've been doing that for a long time. So making sure right off the bat, and it takes time to gather all of that information. I like to have clients put me in touch with their bookkeeper. So if they have someone that has been the bookkeeper for their business, their accountant, their normal accountant, put me in touch with that person, put the expert we hire in touch with that person. And then the expert and the accountant can work together to get the information that the expert needs to do the report or do whatever they need to do. But you got to get that information early and quickly and get them on board. You don't want to wait till the last minute.
Right. It's a process. I know when this client with the restaurant, we were immediately, secure them, let's get things started. And it can facilitate a really good conversation about settlement, meaning you're not hiring the expert for the trial, which you ultimately could be, but it is really to help you understand what the values are, that we can have that conversation, because we can't advise someone appropriately and what is a fair and reasonable and conscionable division of property without really knowing its value. You mentioned art, gold coins, silver coins, whatever, things that have significant value. I've had that where we had to have a jewelry appraisal because there was so much jewelry. We had no idea what they were worth. And so those are conversations, I think, if you're a guy listening and you've got that kind of property, you've got things, I don't know what it's worth. Say, hey, is there some sort of expert out there that I could benefit from? Yes, I know it's a cost, but in the end, will I make more money by doing so? So, good point, Kelly. I appreciate it. If you want to hear more information, you want to get in touch with Kelly. She's board certified. Very small percentage of attorneys in Texas are. So she certainly has the credentials. You can reach out at 866-DADS-LAW. So thanks for joining today, Kelly.
Thank you for having me, Scott.
Well, continue to join in. Watch twice each week. We'll bring you information just like this on our podcast. Check our social. Go ahead and go to CordellCordell.com and sign up for that virtual town hall coming up. We're going to talk about the 5 additional mistakes guys make during or when facing divorce. Until next time, have a great week.